really sorry, sir. I just needed the job badly.
The morning sun rose slowly over Kaduna City, painting golden light across the rusty tin roofs of the old neighborhood. In a small room with cracked walls and a leaking ceiling, Juliet Jatau woke up on a thin mat spread on the cold floor. She was 26 years old, but life had aged her beyond her years. Juliet was born into crushing poverty. Her father was a retired primary school teacher who received no pension. Her mother sold groundnuts by the roadside. Together, they struggled to feed their 5 children. But Juliet was different. She carried intelligence like a hidden treasure. While other children played, she read everything she could find. Torn novels from the dustbin, borrowed textbooks, old newspapers wrapped around suya. She memorized them all. Yet, her brilliance changed nothing. After secondary school, while her classmates went to universities with their parents' money, Juliet carried cement blocks at building sites under the hot sun. She washed public toilets at motor parks. She hawked pure water in traffic, shouting pure water, cold pure water, until her voice went hoarse. Every kobo she earned went toward her education. After 7 painful years of working and studying part-time, Juliet finally graduated from university with a first-class degree in business administration. On her convocation day, she stood alone in her borrowed gown. Her parents couldn't afford the transport fare to attend, but she smiled through the tears streaming down her face, because she had made it. Then came NYSC, 1 year of hope mixed with disappointment. After that, 3 long years of hunting for jobs. She submitted over 200 applications. She received rejection emails, unanswered calls, and painful silence. Each day chipped away at her confidence like a blunt knife cutting slowly. Finally, after all those years, she got a job as a teller in a small microfinance bank. Her salary was 4,000 to 5,000 naira per month, barely enough to pay rent and eat once a day. She couldn't afford new clothes. She wore the same faded dress 4 times a week. Her colleagues mocked her openly for eating rice without meat and wearing torn shoes with cardboard inside to cover the holes. "See this one. Even common chicken she cannot buy," they whispered loudly enough for her to hear. Juliet would smile quietly, pretending not to notice. But every insult entered her heart like a sharp needle. One hot Tuesday afternoon in February, Juliet sat at Mimon Ketch's Buka, a small local restaurant with plastic chairs and the thick smell of stew in the air. She was eating jollof rice with fried plantain, no meat, as usual, when 3 young men sat at the table next to her. They were graduates like her, wearing frustrated faces and wrinkled shirts. "I'm tired of this country," the first one said, hitting his fist on the table. "I've sent over 80 CVs. Nothing." "Me too," the second one replied sadly. "Even my uncle, who is a director somewhere, cannot help me." The third man, whose name was Cato, leaned forward and whispered, "Have you people heard about Jatau Group of Companies?" "The big one?" the first man asked. "Yes, that one," Cato answered. "They're hiring new staff this month. The salary is 600,000 naira per month." Juliet's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. 600,000? That was more than she earned in a whole year. "Forget it," the second man said bitterly. "That company is not for people like us." "What do you mean?" Cato asked. "My brother, except you have 3 million naira cash to pay, or except you know Marcus Jatau himself, the CEO, personally, forget that job." Juliet's heart began to beat faster. She pretended to focus on her food, but her ears were wide open. 3 million, Cato repeated. "That much?" "Yes. My friend Emeka, we graduated together from ABU. His father paid 3 million naira, and he was employed last year. Now he's living in a fine house in Abuja, driving a car. That's how they do it." "But I heard Marcus Jatau is a strict man," the first man said. "I heard he only believes in merit, not connection." Cato laughed bitterly. "That's the joke. Yes, Mr. Jatau believes in merit. But he's only in Nigeria twice a year, in January for the annual general meeting and in December for the staff party and awards night. The rest of the year, he's in London, America, South Africa, managing his other businesses. So the people running things here do whatever they want." "Exactly. They collect money behind his back." As long as you pay and keep your mouth shut, you're inside. The interviews happen in their regional offices like here in Kaduna, but once you're employed, you move to Abuja. That's where the headquarters is. The second man sighed deeply. I wish I had 3 million. Or I wish my surname was Jatau. The other two laughed. If only, Cato said. If my surname was Jatau, I would apply, claim to be his son, work from March to November, then resign quietly before he comes back in December. By then, I would have earned over 5 million naira. They even give new staff 600,000 naira as settlement allowance for wardrobe, accommodation in Abuja, relocation, everything. They all laughed loudly at the joke. But Juliet didn't laugh. Her spoon slipped from her hand and clattered on the plate. Marcus Jatau. She knew that name. He was from Plateau State, just like her. He was one of the richest men in Africa. And just like that, a dangerous idea crept into Juliet's mind like a snake entering a quiet room. That night, Juliet couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat, staring at the ceiling with its brown water stains. Cato's words kept repeating in her head like a drum. If only my surname was Jatau, she thought about her life. The suffering, the shame, the hunger. She thought about her parents back in the village, still struggling. She thought about her torn shoes, her faded clothes, the way people looked down on her. Then she thought, what if I try it? She had the qualifications. She had a first-class degree. She was brilliant, hardworking, and within the age limit. All she lacked was the name. So, trembling with fear and desperation, Juliet made a decision that would change her life forever. She applied for the job at Jatau Group of Companies. And when the form asked for her surname, she typed Jatau. It was the same surname she was born with. But now, it carried a dangerous lie. 1 week later, Juliet received an email. Subject: Interview invitation, Jatau Group of Companies, Kaduna office. Her hands shook as she read it. The interview was scheduled for the following Monday at 10 a.m. Juliet had no proper clothes for an interview. So she went to the second-hand clothes market, bend down select, and searched for hours. She bought 2 skirts for 200 naira each, 3 shirts for 150 naira each, and a black jacket with a small tear under the arm. Everything was faded and old. That weekend, she took the clothes to a local woman who dyed them with dark colors to hide the fading. She adjusted the jacket herself with needle and thread, covering the tear. She polished her old shoes with Vaseline to make them shine. When she looked in the cracked mirror on Monday morning, she almost cried. She didn't look rich, but she looked serious. She looked like someone who deserved a chance. At exactly 9:45 a.m., Juliet walked into the regional office of Jatau Group of Companies in Kaduna. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The interview room was large and cold. 5 panel members sat behind a long table, wearing expensive suits and serious faces. Juliet sat down carefully, her hands folded on her lap to stop them from shaking. They asked her questions, difficult ones. She answered every single one perfectly. They asked her about financial management, customer relations, business ethics. She explained everything clearly, confidently, like someone who had studied not just for exams, but for life. The panel members exchanged impressed looks. Then, one of them, a woman with sharp eyes and red lipstick, picked up Juliet's CV and read aloud, Juliet Jatau. She paused. Jatau, she repeated slowly, looking at Juliet carefully. Are you by any chance related to our CEO, Mr. Marcus Jatau? The room went silent. Juliet's heart stopped. In that terrible moment, fear and desperation wrestled inside her like 2 wild animals fighting. Then, she heard her own voice, quiet, steady, but full of lies. Yes, Ma. He's my father. The room exploded with gasps. Your father? Another panel member exclaimed. You're Mr. Jatau's daughter. Juliet nodded slowly, avoiding their eyes. But why didn't you say so before? The woman asked. Why go through the normal interview process? Your father could have just called us. Juliet forced a nervous smile. My father believes that every child should work hard and earn their place. He doesn't believe in using his name to get ahead. The panel members nodded deeply, clearly impressed. But inside, Panic was building. One of the men leaned forward, frowning. "This is unusual. We need to be very careful here." Another woman whispered urgently, "You know how Mr. Jatau is. He only believes in merit. What if he sent her here secretly to test us, to see if we would treat her differently?" "Exactly," the first man whispered back. "If we reject her now and she reports to him, we're finished." They all nodded nervously. The red lipstick woman cleared her throat. "Miss Jatau, you've performed excellently in this interview. Your qualifications are outstanding. First-class degree, within our age limit, and your answers were perfect." She paused. "We'll be in touch very soon." Juliet stood up, shook their hands with trembling fingers, and walked out of the building. Outside, she leaned against the wall and cried silently. The lie had worked. 3 days later, Juliet received another email. "Congratulations. You have been offered the position of junior financial analyst. Monthly salary, 600,000 naira. Settlement allowance, 600,000 naira for relocation, accommodation, and wardrobe. Resumption date, March 1st at our headquarters in Abuja." Juliet screamed. She jumped. She cried. She laughed. For the first time in her 26 years of suffering, life had smiled at her, even if that smile was built on lies. Within a week, the 600,000 naira settlement allowance was paid into her account. Juliet stayed at the bank alert and cried. She had never seen so much money in her life. She immediately sent 200,000 naira home to her parents, who cried tears of joy and thanked God for finally answering their prayers. She used some of the money to buy decent clothes, not expensive ones, but clean, presentable ones. She bought a small suitcase. She paid for transport to Abuja. For the first time, she felt like a human being. But deep down, in the quiet moments before sleep, fear lived inside her like a shadow. Every time she thought about what she had done, her heart would race. And she made herself one promise. "I will resign in November before Mr. Jatau returns in December. No one will ever know." Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying it so far, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. This is When Africa Speaks, where we bring you real stories that teach, inspire, and entertain. Don't just watch and leave. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below telling us what you think about Juliet's situation so far. Would you have been tempted too? Let's talk. Now, back to the story. Months passed. Juliet worked at the Abuja headquarters with excellence. She rented a small, self-contained apartment in Lugb. She bought food without checking the price. She sent money home every month. Her colleagues respected her, not just because they thought she was the boss's daughter, but because she was truly brilliant. But deep inside, guilt ate at her slowly, like a disease. Every time someone at work mentioned her father, her heart would race. She avoided questions. She kept her life private, and she counted down the days to November. But then, in early October, something terrible happened. Marcus Jatau returned to Nigeria. 1 month early. No one expected it. The moment his private jet landed in Abuja, panic spread through the company like wildfire. "Mr. Jatau is back. Mr. Jatau is back," people whispered urgently. When he arrived at the head office, everyone scrambled to impress him. One manager smiled widely and said, "Sir, welcome. Your daughter has been doing wonderfully well here." Marcus Jatau froze. "My daughter?" he asked slowly, his voice deep and dangerous. "What daughter?" "Juliet, sir. Juliet Jatau. She's one of our best staff members." Marcus's face went cold. He had no daughter working in this company. He had no daughter old enough to work anywhere. Marcus called the HR manager to his office immediately. "Who is this Juliet Jatau?" he asked coldly. The HR manager, a short man with a nervous smile, answered quickly. "So, she's one of our most outstanding new recruits. First-class degree, brilliant mind, excellent performance. We didn't even know you had a daughter, sir." "But she said, 'Bring her to me,'" Marcus interrupted. "Now." 10 minutes later, Juliet stood outside Marcus Jatau's office, trembling like a leaf in a storm. When the door opened, she walked in slowly. The man behind the enormous mahogany desk looked calm, but his presence filled the room like thunder waiting to strike. "Sit," he said quietly. Juliet obeyed, her legs barely able to hold her. Marcus studied her face for a long, painful moment. "I've heard a lot about you," he began slowly. "Everyone here says you're my daughter." He leaned forward, his eyes like fire. "Are you?" Juliet's lips trembled. Tears rolled down her face before she could speak. "So?" Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I lied."
I'm really sorry,
Silence.
sir. I just
The
needed the
kind of
job
silence
badly.
that crushes your chest. "Why?" Marcus asked, his voice like iron. Juliet wiped her tears with shaking hands. "Because, so, no one ever believed in me. I came from nothing. People mocked me for being poor, for being nobody. I was tired of suffering. I just wanted to be respected, to feel seen, even if it was for once." Marcus stood up and walked to the tall window overlooking the city. He sighed deeply. "Respect built on lies," he said slowly, "is like a house built on sand. The first storm will destroy it." He turned back to her. "You know I should fire you." Juliet nodded, crying harder. "Yes, sir. But I won't." She looked up, shocked. Instead, Marcus continued, "You will work twice as hard as anyone in this company. You will rebuild your name, with truth this time. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Juliet whispered. "Good. Now leave." By the next morning, everyone knew. The CEO's daughter was not his daughter at all. Whispers followed Juliet everywhere. Lunch tables went silent when she passed. Former friends avoided her like she carried a disease. The shame burned deeper than any wound. But Juliet didn't quit. She remembered Marcus's words, "Work twice as hard." And she did exactly that. She stayed late after everyone went home. She studied company reports until midnight. She volunteered for the most difficult tasks. She fixed problems others ignored. Slowly, people began to notice, not her lie, but her work. 2 years later, at the company's annual awards night in December, Juliet Jatau stood on stage. He looked at the audience, then at Juliet, sitting quietly in the front row. "Every great company has people who make mistakes," he said. "But the truly great ones are those who rise from them stronger." He smiled slightly. Juliet Jatau taught us that. Applause filled the hall. Juliet's eyes shimmered with tears, but this time, they were tears of victory. As the music played and lights glittered, she whispered to herself, "I once lied to gain respect, but now I've earned it with truth." What a story! If this touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to When Africa Speaks. We bring you powerful African stories every week. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and comment below telling us what you learned from Juliet's story. Remember, you may start with nothing, but if you refuse to quit, even life's harshest lessons can refine you. True respect isn't borrowed through lies. It's earned through growth, courage, and hard work. Until next time, keep speaking your truth.